Now, thermoregulation. So thing is that if you've taken basic like physical sciences or even AP Bio, is that water retains heat. So again, water is able to hold on to heat. So the interesting thing is like again, you have all that plasma in your blood that's mostly water based. So by your blood also holds on to heat. So the interesting thing is that you can use that circulation of blood to cool or warm your internal organs. So right here, what if it's very cold? Like if you're, is this in Whistler? I forgot where it is. But say you're going in one of the more colder regions, or you're up on Mauna Kea, what will happen to the blood flow to your extremities? Well, we see this person's middle finger is starting to lose color, right? So why is her middle finger losing color? Well, she's losing blood to that circulation to that finger. And what happens if that circulation, like you don't have enough circulation over time in this very cold environment? You might end up getting frostbite. And yeah, this is already looking very so blistered and necrotic. So it's like this tissue is dying off. So what we see here is that you're starving. Then why does this happen in very cold climates? Well, the thing is that if your blood is holding on to heat, what happens if you have your blood distributed over a wider area and areas that aren't very close to other parts of your body? Well, things that you're going to be losing heat from your fingertips, you're going to be losing heat from your toes and extremities. So the thing is like, which is more important, your fingers or your internal organs? Yeah, you might lose your finger or toe, but is it better to lose a finger or toe or lose an entire internal organ? So when in very extreme cold, what your body does is draw blood from these extremities and moves it toward your core and things like your heart, your internal organs, your brain, so you don't lose the heat, and these internal organs and brain don't end up freezing up. So this is why you have that blanching, or this is why you have the loss of color here, and this is why you eventually get frostbite with prolonged exposure. And the opposite. So why do some people flush in hot climates? So instead of getting all pale and losing color into your skin, now people in hot climates, they flush. Now, I couldn't find a good before and after. This is actually Asian flush, but same general principle. What happens here is this person is like getting increased blood delivery to their skin. That's why they look much more red in this picture here over on the right of the photograph. So why do people flush in hot climates? Well, or things like, here's an example of rosacea. This is what we also see. And what also triggers rosacea? Things like sun exposure and hot climates. But why does that happen? Well, notice that you have blood going to the skin and surface area. And remember that blood has a lot of water, therefore it has heat. So can you cool off? Well, maybe you should distribute your blood over a wider surface area so you get more the radiation of the heat from your skin and your blood into the surrounding environment. So this is why people can get redder when they're in a hotter environment. So yeah, so this is all due to thermoregulation. By moving blood closer to the surface, that makes the heat closer to the surface of your body so you can get rid of the excess heat. But if it's very cold, well, your body is going to draw in blood toward your internal organs, and this is why you see a loss of color when you're in a cold environment. Buffering. So buffering is talking about not just neutralizing acids, but just like maintaining a very narrow pH range in your blood. So your blood has a very, very narrow pH range. It's 7.4 plus or minus 0.05, not 0.5, 0.05. So between 7.35 and 7.45 pH, that is the normal range, and I think that's well accepted in most institution. I think that's the value in your book as well. So the thing about blood is to buffer, and again, we will cover this later on in the semester, but I'm giving you a heads up right here. So it all involves something called the bicarbonate buffer system, and what we have here is like carbonic acid and its conjugate ion called bicarbonate. So the thing is that it's able to donate protons and acid to a solution, but also reabsorb protons and acid from a solution. So your blood has a lot of carbonic acid and bicarbonate and protons, but it keeps it in that narrow pH range by having appropriate concentrations of these compounds. So a buffer solution, in a buffer solution, again, if you haven't had chemistry, it's going to be a little tough. You might have to do some homework to catch up with this, but what we have here is a weak acid and a base. When you have this in a water-based solution, this is a buffer solution. And the buffers, so when you have the weak acid conjugate base in a solution, it tends to maintain a relatively stable pH compared to if you only had like one of these compounds by itself in solution. So this is what we call the bicarbonate buffer. So in your blood, you have something called the bicarbonate buffer system. And this is the equation that you'll definitely see later on multiple times in this semester. But what we have here, this, again, pH is measuring the concentration of acid, protons, hydrogen ions. Same thing. This is what you measure with pH. So by having both carbonic acid and bicarbonate, you're able to maintain the appropriate concentration of pH, or of protons, that, again, your pH in your blood. And transportation. So blood can also be thought of as your mass transit in your highway system inside your body, or maybe like, yeah, so it's like, yeah, it's the transportation system of your body. So the thing is that transports both nutrients and waste. So again, it delivers food when you need it, or all these nutrients where you need it, basically every cell in your body. But your cells also produce waste, so you have to get rid of the waste as well. If you didn't have the food supply, if you didn't have the waste pickup, well, that causes problems in our everyday life, right? Same with your cells. They need nutrient delivery, but they also need to pick up the waste as well. Hormones and other signaling molecules, again, this is why hormones can be potentially broadcast to every cell in your body. But again, receptors, this is why hormones have like they're able to be target certain cells versus being affecting every single cell. So again, hormones and gases, very important, especially when we get to the respiratory system. And many types of cells are transported in your blood. So again, your blood is a delivery system, but it's also a transport system as well. And formed elements. So again, these are the cells of your blood. Your blood is a connective tissue, and the cells are formed elements. And the three main types we have are erythrocytes, the red blood cells, leukocytes, your red white blood cells, and platelets, also known as thrombocytes. That's the medical term. But often, like when they do like a complete blood count, sometimes they just say platelets. So thrombocytes equals platelets.